Hey, buddy.
What's going on, man?
Not much. How are you?
All right. I feel like I just saw you yesterday.
Jesus Christ. It's been such a long day. I got home like, what, 10:30, 11? And I was,
Yeah, at the earliest, yeah.
And I fucking left the house at 3:30 this morning.
Yeah.
It sucked. And then rain.
Yep.
I'm going to complain about this off and on all night.
I know you are. You tired?
Yeah, a little bit.
So
hold on. First and foremost.
Okay,
Well, let's get to the housekeeping first. Go
Well,
ahead.
actually, what I was going to say is the audio episode of the Redneck Review podcast. Those guys had us on this episode. We recorded with them last night for their show. Yep. So check them out. God, I feel like it was a shit show, but whatever. We'll see. So
I think it was just a shit show at the beginning because of the audio issues that we were having.
Could have been.
After that, it was okay.
So, friends of the show, CQ, the pop culture warrior, he's going to be on with us here in the next month or so.
Yeah, I bumped him.
I know you did. Two Brothers podcast, Troy and Trevor, and the Trevor Jackson podcast as well. We mentioned Redneck Review and Redneck News Entertainment, but the Andy Harris on Twitter. He's hot lately. He's been going at it on Twitter.
He needs that blue check mark, man.
Yeah. We have T-shirts and stickers, so let us know if you want to get something. And then b3fpodcast.com. Yep. There's a page on there to tell us what you really think. It's anonymous. You can rate us 0 to 5 stars for each of us individually and the show. Yeah. And then you can write a review. And again, it is completely anonymous, and we love it when you leave shit about us.
This one is rough, man.
So, yeah, you've got one that you're going to...
I just want to share with you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, me and you, nothing.
Nothing for you, nothing for me.
No, 0 stars all the way around.
Okay.
0 stars for the podcast. But the feedback for the podcast itself is this show ruined Forged in Fire for me. You're both horrible people, and I hope you both get cancer and die.
Okay, so that's probably someone we know.
I don't think it is.
I think it is.
Do you?
I think it may be Nick.
No, Nick puts his name on because he's
yeah, but he did last time. I don't think he would this next. We gave him shit for putting his name on there.
Maybe
this.
We can.
Maybe it's not Nick. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, we have. We are drinking tonight.
Tonight,
the one thing I've been not looking forward to the most.
Well, you picked it.
I did pick it mostly because we're both going to hate it, and if I'm going to be miserable, you're going to be miserable.
Jim Beam Apple.
This is Jim Beam Apple.
So while you're pouring that, I want to say next week on the show with us we have Anders Eriksson.
Oh, that smells so bad.
His Instagram handle is Nightmare Gloves. He has been Robert Englund's personal Freddy Krueger glove maker for 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
And he does special effects makeup and has worked on shows.
That's the only reason
like
CQ is excused being bumped. He said as long as we give him a reference.
God, that smells like apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, it smells like sadness.
Anyway, so Anders Eriksson will be on with us next week. That will be fun. And tonight he's got some wine. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, we have a gentleman. He is a comedian out of New York, not New Jersey. I insulted him gravely earlier, but we have Mr. Shaun Eli from Brain Champagne and many other things. He's a comedian, like I said. I think I can't remember. My brain is already gone for the night. But how you doing, man? Thanks for being on.
I'm doing well. I don't have to drink something that smells like apple cider vinegar, so I'm good.
Yeah, this does not smell good, but cheers anyway.
Cheers to have you on, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, it doesn't taste like it smells, but it doesn't taste good.
No, it is not good at all.
So
your dog.
You know what? After the 10th, it won't taste so bad.
That's
yeah.
We had the stuff on a few weeks ago that he got it, and it's called Tequila. It's a locally made, like it tastes like tequila flavored vodka. It was absolutely terrible.
It was terrible until you mixed lime in it, and then it was tolerable.
Right.
But it was so bad that you continued to drink it all night and get shit faced.
I know it was rough. It was a rough evening for me.
I was in Thailand a couple of years ago, and I wanted to bring back some local liqueur just out of curiosity. And they have Thai whiskey, and my brother really likes whiskey. So I said, I'll get a bottle of Thai whiskey. And then I started reading about it. They said, they call it whiskey. It's really closer to rum, and it's awful. I said, okay, forget it.
That's how I go about picking a lot of the things we have on here when it's my week. I'm like, oh, this is probably terrible. We should definitely try this.
Congratulations.
Right.
You succeeded this week. So anyway, you're a comedian. I understand you do a lot of corporate events and things like that, correct?
Not lately, but yeah.
Well, sure. Nobody's doing anything lately. So how did you get into comedy? Like when did it start for you?
18 years ago, I was on a first date with a woman, and she said, "You're funny. You should be a comedian." And I said, "No, thanks." And she talked me into taking a class, and I took a class and started performing, and 6 years later, I said, you know what? I like this better than my job in an office.
Yeah.
So
it does sound like it's better than an office job. It's
and
those
yet,
6 years.
look where I am now. I'm in an office. This is an office.
Right. Talking to a couple douchebags in Tennessee, man.
Right.
It can't get much lower from here.
Yeah, but I don't have to work for a-holes. So it's
no,
You're right. You're right. That is true.
No, we're both creative failures in our past, so we both work office jobs now. So
our present as well.
But in our present as well. But, you know, our failures in the past have led us to our office jobs, as opposed to, you know,
led us to this.
Right.
Well, listen, you can fail upward. People fail and get, succeed in life.
Yeah, I saw Biden fail upward of the stairs going into the airplane the other day. So yeah, you absolutely can.
No, so. I was actually. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say he's already president, so that doesn't count.
Right.
No, so I was going to say, out of the two of us, like, you are a huge stand-up, a fan of the art. Yeah, I should say, much more so. Like, I enjoy stand-up comedy, but like your knowledge of it and structure and all that goes way beyond mine. So I was looking forward to having him on, just because I don't listen to you. Like, I don't believe anything you say, but somebody that actually does it. We can get to talk.
Is there much to know? Because it's not like music where it's so complicated.
But it is, though. I mean, you have a cadence and a rhythm, and there's a structure that works. I mean, whatever styling that you're in, it's very similar in a lot of ways, I think.
I guess, I don't know, do musicians sit down and figure out a rhythm, or do they just they play a guitar and say that's what a guitar sounds like? I don't know.
No, it's the same. I mean, you work through it, and then you'll rewrite and re-scratch it out and try this and inverting that.
It depends on what kind of success you want as well. I mean, there's absolutely a formula for having a radio hit. I mean, there's luck involved in it a little bit. I don't like to bring luck into it, but there's still formulas like how long should a song be, and
but just outside of radio popularity,
sure.
I mean, there's still a structure that works
absolutely
and that doesn't, because otherwise you have art rock that just sounds like shit, like people banging on pots and stuff.
You mean jazz?
Jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can see that, though, the similarities, but between the two.
Anything that involves creating, in my opinion, they all have very similar processes.
Yeah.
But they all have very specific. I mean, they're specific to the craft, but they all have a very similar. I guess I would say rhythm, not rhythm. Fuck, I can't even talk. My damn goddamn, I'm tired.
Well, I mean, but it's also similar to music, whereas there's so many different styles of comedian, and because you have your storytellers, you have your boom boom boom, like punch in the face with punchline guys. You have your
one-liners.
Well, your one-liner guys, your Mitch Hedbergs and your Stephen Wrights, that kind of. So, and then in music, you have your wide range of genres, and even in like metal, like how many different types of metal are there? My
Billy
God.
Bob Thornton,
Sure.
He's actually hell
the Bacon Brothers.
Well, I guess I don't sit down and there's very few of my jokes where I sit down and say I should tell it this way. It just mostly it works naturally, or it doesn't, or it eventually somehow I figure it out.
Right. So you don't pour over the maybe I should change this word to this word, or take a pause here, or anything like that?
Usually not consciously. Sometimes I'll change a word to see how it works better, or I'll get tongue-tied and realize that's a bad combination of words because it's easy to get tongue-tied, so I'll switch things around. Like, I had a joke where I said heroin addict, and the amount of, you don't think about it, heroin addict doesn't sound hard to say, but the amount of machinations your mouth has to go through to say heroin addict, it's easy to screw it up. So I changed it to crack whore, and it works just as well.
It does work well. We laughed just here, and you didn't even tell us the joke. So yeah.
I'm the worst out of the two of us. I have the worst dick mouth. Like,
for sure.
I can't throw syllables together, words. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of what I do is I can practice.
Right.
Very little spontaneous.
So what does practice look like for you? I mean, I've heard some comedians talk about standing in front of a mirror before a show or before a late night set, kind of just probably making sure that they're not tripping over words, but then you also have people that work out in at open mics or at smaller clubs, your Carolines and things like that, where they just go, they can be a regular on there and they work. I mean, your seasoned comedians still work out new material. So what does that look like for you?
Well, as far as rehearsing at home, I don't stand in front of a mirror, but I until the pandemic, I did very little rehearsing because people would say, "Oh, it's not that helpful. You need an audience." It turns out that's not true, at least for me. So I'll just walk around my house and go through my material. And I would say with a week of rehearsing, it's between, say, an hour 15 is an average amount of time without an audience for me to rehearse. I would say at least once a week I come up with another tag, like another punchline for one of my jokes. But since I haven't been in front of an audience much in the last year, I don't really know whether any of this is going to work, but I guess I'll find
out. Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny when I was playing music solo and doing shows, like I never rehearsed either. Like when I had a band, like other people playing with me, but after a while, like, yeah,
You never sat at home and just got the guitar and just like bang through a couple of your songs?
No, not solo.
Okay.
Yeah. Like when I was writing it, that was my rehearsal. And
okay.
then after that, I had that locked in and it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Explain.
That's why you got the success. All right.
Well, I have to say it's no fun rehearsing.
No, it's awful.
And I put it off. It's sort of like they teach comics. They tell new comics, record all of your sets and then watch them. And the recording is easy. You just put a camera down, you hit record. The watching is terrible.
Yeah.
It's like hearing your own voice on a tape recorder times 100. It's just awful to do. But you realize what mistakes you make when you watch yourself.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
It's quite the same with podcasting. You have to go back and listen to some of it to adjust audio or do video or whatever. It's brutal sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm enough of a narcissist. I'm like, oh, you did good. Joey sucks.
I know you are.
But God damn it, Steven, you are on point.
Yeah.
Never mind the fact you didn't pronounce anything correctly. You were.
And that's why you're not the one doing the editing anymore, right?
Yeah, no one does the editing anymore. He just does adjust the levels. He's a glorified board op.
Is that why he's so much louder than everybody else all the time?
It probably, yes. That, and I learned last night because we're on someone else's podcast last night, so it's basically the same setup for us. But I noticed, I felt like I was hearing him stacked on top of, and I just went and took the headphone like this, and he was yelling into the microphone. But he's very good at what he does, so he was never peaking or clipping or anything like that. But he was yelling into the microphone.
It's all about the range work. So I get
Is that what it was? Okay, I got you.
Well, you guys are right in front of the mic the way you should be. My mic is on top of my monitor, so it's probably over a foot away from me.
Oh, I got you. Okay,
which is why I'm screaming.
Obviously.
Oh, so do you? I mean, I know you said over the last year not so much, but like, do you have any local clubs there in New York that you work at and work on material at any local clubs or anything? Or
yeah, I'm at Broadway Comedy Club or Greenwich Village Comedy Club once in a while. I'll try out some new jokes there. I don't want this to sound like bragging, because it's not that I think my jokes are better than anybody else or as good. I think, though, that my first drafts are pretty good. So there are some comics who are brilliant joke writers, but like 1 in 5 of their jokes works and they have to go try them out. And for me, maybe it's 4 in 5. So it's less, gotcha. I feel less risk at trying out new material in front of an audience.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. I'd imagine, though, doing it long enough, like you also start getting a pretty good feel of what's good. Like when you get it out, like it might need some tweaking, but like when you get out, like, okay, this one's probably going to land, really, really well versus something else like, it'll fill some space in between the two good ones. It's that type of thing.
You'd think that, but sometimes we think something's funny and the audience is just stares at us and they're like, no. And then another comic will say, well, that's a good premise, but it's not really a joke. You got to work on it. And I'll be like, what do you mean? I thought that was brilliant. Like, nope, not going to work.
You say, well, the audience was just wrong.
You know what? Sometimes the audience is wrong.
I agree. Yeah, I've heard a comedian before say, you guys are not laughing nearly as funny as I am right now.
I mean, I've heard a lot of comedians if they don't get a laugh, will say something like, hey, fuck you, that shit's funny. And I don't like that as a comic, because that's just being mean to the audience for no reason. Okay, they didn't like it. Sometimes there's bad audiences, but sometimes you just didn't hit right.
Right. Yeah. So actually, that's one thing I wanted to ask, because obviously they're out there. Because you mentioned a couple names that I don't know, but it seems like more and more, I guess last few years especially, you don't hear of too many quote unquote clean comics that are out? Do you feel like that kind of set you apart in a niche, or is that an advantage? Is it more difficult sometimes? Like, where does that land for you?
It's interesting that you asked if it could be more difficult, because every once in a while somebody won't respond when I apply. I look to work it, and a comic took me aside and he said, people have this perception sometimes, comedy club bookers, that if you're a clean comic, it means you don't know how to deal with an audience that gets rough. And I don't know why that would make any difference, but it definitely, in comedy clubs, it pretty much doesn't matter if you're clean. But if you want to make big bucks, corporate events and charity fundraisers and stuff like that pays better. And if 85% of the comics, just to make up a number, can't do a half hour clean, then you've got a big advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a good business decision. Also, I mean, I have some dirty jokes I've written that I usually don't tell, but I don't need them. My brain doesn't tend to write dirty stuff.
Right? Yeah. I've heard a couple of comedians before say that almost every comedian starts out having to be clean, because some open mics, I know Zanies in Nashville, years before we moved to Knoxville, like I had looked at Zanies in Nashville just to see what their policies were. And it was like, if it's your first time doing their open mic, you get 90 seconds of stage time and it has to be clean. And that felt like, wow. But I have heard comics say that it's harder to get laughs with clean material. I mean, there are definitely people that prove that wrong. I mean, Nate Bargatze's and Jerry Seinfeld's and Shaun Eli's and but yeah, I mean, I think Bill Burr, I heard him say one time, it's like most comedians are clean to start out with. Even if they're not a clean comedian, their act is relatively clean on stage because they're only doing a few minutes anyway at open mics.
I don't know about that. I think it's very interesting that you say that the club did that for their open mic
back in the early 90s when he first started. I don't know.
Maybe.
But
I think sure that's a good policy for an open mic, for a new open micer, simply because I would say a big chunk of open micers start out where the jokes aren't jokes. They're just shock. And people laugh out of discomfort rather than surprise or actual comedy. So if you can cut those, and those people almost always fail in 6 months. So maybe if Zanies thinks if we can keep those people out, that'll be better for us. And also, if they have actual audience members showing up to watch the open mic, they want the open micers to be better. In New York City, you don't have that because there's no audience for open mics. It's just other comics hanging out.
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
Well, I mean, even in your bigger cities, I know like the store when it's open in LA, like you could drop in for a regular night, but you may see 10 like big time names doing 5 or 10 minutes that night for whatever your normal price is. But again, like you say, your open mic nights, not so much. You still may have an audience in LA because people are looking for shit to do. But I mean, to think about some of those clubs that you're just paying, it's a normal Tuesday night and you're just going to go in there and have your 2 or 3 or 4 drinks and maybe hang out for a little while. But, Chris Rock's going to come in, maybe Chappelle's in town at the time or whatever, but you just have these big name comedians that come in. So I don't understand why your open mics wouldn't have a little more of an audience, because you never know when the open mic's over what's going to happen, or who may even be in town that week and MC the open mic because they don't have anything else to do or whatever.
I haven't run into that. I mean, I've done the open mic at the Comedy Store half a dozen times when I've been in LA, but Dave Chappelle is not emceeing the open mic.
No. I get that. But I know that I've heard some stories where somebody's in town and they're just like, yeah, why not? I'll introduce comedians.
In a club show, sure. The only time I've ever seen, I shouldn't say that, a couple of times I've seen good comedians stop in an open mic to try out material. Jim Gaffigan does it, and somebody questioned it once, and he's like, why shouldn't I? It's in front of people I can try out jokes. Joe DeVito, who's a great comic here in New York, to him, a day off is just stopping by, an open mic on the way home from like a family occasion, as opposed to, five sets in a night. But the Comedy Store open mic is a tough one to watch as an audience member because it's free. I don't mean for the audience. I mean the comics. Most open mics, at least in New York and LA, you got to pay a few bucks or you got to buy a drink because the club is doing it so they can make money.
Sure.
So, but the Comedy Store is free, and they get people who literally are crazy and just need attention, and they're not actual comedians. But
sure,
they know that if they show up and rant, they can rant in front of people for 2 minutes. So it's kind of painful.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. The reason nobody goes to open mics because open mics notoriously fucking suck.
Yeah, I would say
and
most.
That's not just for. I mean, that's music open mics. That's whatever. I mean, it's a chance for basically other artists to have some kind of community or have some stage time or whatever. And usually, how it breaks down is you have like 5% on average that are really like, okay, they're going places. This is awesome. There's about a 10% window of, okay, they're pretty good. And then it just gets wider and wider as it goes down. And probably 50% is just absolute trash.
Sure. And I think that's why you have like the bringer shows where if you're going to go, I think it might not have been Zany's, but somewhere else I was reading on their website one time was like, to be in our open mic, you got to sign up early enough, but you got to bring 3 friends with you, and they each have a 2-drink minimum, and they don't have to take the stage, but they got to come in, and so they're getting 6 drinks out of it, and then maybe those people come back in at some other time because maybe they had a decent time or whatever. So,
but yeah, I resent if they call that an open mic because that's clearly a bringer show, and to me they're 2 different things. Because an open mic means anybody can show up, and maybe at a bringer show anybody can show up too, but you're required to bring people. So it bugs me when clubs call that an open mic.
Yeah, because if you're new in town, you don't have anybody you can bring, but you want to get up and start. I mean, you've got to have a place. Now, I would agree because, well, we had this conversation about music open mics at one point. You were saying you hate going into a bar to have a drink and there being like a shitty open mic and you haven't like pay any kind of cover or pay anything like that going on, and then like you hate it when they don't play cover songs.
No, I just to hear it. I like hearing a band that sucks if they're playing. I don't mind hearing a band that sucks if they're playing cover songs. I just hate hearing a band that sucks. I'm old enough that I can complain about that kind of shit.
But it's the same.
And
thing
I've played shitty music and I've played good music.
That's why a comedy open mic will have nobody fucking there because nobody wants to come in there and sit through shitty comedy.
Yeah, but I don't walk into the bar and then walk right out. I still go in and do my thing. I just hate it.
Here's the thing I discovered when I started out, because at the beginning there weren't really lists of open mics, but when I found open mics, sometimes as a comedian, I'd find a music open mic and I'd say, can I do comedy? And they'd be like, you got 5 minutes. You can do whatever you want. And the difference is if you go to a comedy open mic, for the most part, everybody in the audience is a comedian. They're only thinking about themselves. They're not paying attention. And even if you're good, you have to struggle to get laughs.
Right.
And I found you can get laughs if you're really good and you try really hard. You'll get some laughs. But a lot of times you can do good jokes and get nothing at a comedy open mic. But if I go to a music open mic as a comedian, they pay attention because I'm a novelty for them. And they're not used to hearing comedians.
If you're halfway funny, you'll crush it at a music
and they pay attention, which is great.
Yeah.
There's a couple of open mics in Knoxville, and Stephen and I had decided we were going to go attempt a comedy open mic before, and we've never been able to line up our nights to be able to go and do it at the same time. But
the one or two that we had one.
Yeah, we went and checked it out just to make sure.
But you also need, just because of how you are, a certain amount of preparation for whatever you're going to do.
It's mental prep, really.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
what I'm saying. But you need to feel like you're prepared.
I guess so. Yeah, I can't have a shitty week and I'll just
show the fuck up and do whatever.
Yeah, I understand that. You're the problems that he's talking about.
Yeah, I absolutely am.
Well,
I just want attention.
You're the shock jock.
Well, what'll happen sometimes is, you're given, let's say, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes doesn't sound like a long time.
Oh, it's a long time.
And somebody writes out what they think is 5 minutes of material in 2 minutes, and they're nervous, so they go really fast and they run through the material and there's no pause for laughter. And then at 2 minutes, they're like, oh shit. And they try to fill the 3 minutes, and they'd be much better off if it's their first time to say, you know what, that's all I got. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do we had this guy, there's a music open mic in Huntsville, and I can't remember the kid's name. He played a ukulele and he did comedy music, but he only ever played the same 3 songs every time. It was a song about fucking a horse. It was a song, he did a cover of Sexy and I Know It. And it was another song about like fucking a dolphin. Like those were his 3 songs. Like the very first time.
He was a musical comedian,
but that's all
comedic musician. Yeah. And he only had,
he was always
60% of his stuff was comedy.
But he was always like, oh, I'm working on more. I'm working on this. I'm working on that.
Gotcha.
And the thing was, the first time you see it, it was legitimately funny. But after
next Tuesday when he does it again, it's not funny.
It's getting less and less.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Somebody pointed out to me. The comedian in open mic is not there for the audience. He's there for himself or herself.
Sure.
So there was an open mic I went to, and one of my colleagues got up, and he did literally the second half of one of his jokes. And I'm like, only people who knew the joke knew what you were talking about. And he's like, yeah, but I already know how to tell the first half. I don't need practice for that. So if you knew it, you knew it. I just needed to be, standing on stage with a mic in my hand and lights in my face, practicing telling it.
Well, I think, because you said people aren't there for the audience, they're there for themselves, musical open mics or comedy open mics. And I think that that's a mistake. I think if you go in and you try to win the audience over a little bit, I think that you open yourself up to have a little bit more success, at least locally.
Well, you play like you're playing to a crowd, but you're still there for yourself at an open mic, because you're usually playing for other musicians, other comedians, and you always, or comedians if you're kind of book. I mean, so you're always performing, but you're there to hone your craft or to practice.
Oh no, I understand that, but I'm saying if you're not trying to get the audience with it, I think you're leaving something on the table.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not saying they're not trying to get the audience, but in his case, he just wanted to practice telling the second half of the joke.
Sure, no, I get that.
But then here's something. I've been doing this 18 years, and every couple of years, I say you have to get better to realize how good you're not. Because after 2 years, people think, oh, I'm a brilliant comedian and I should be, on the Tonight Show. And then in two more years, they'll look back and say, oh, 2 years ago, I thought I was a genius and I wasn't. But now I'm 4 years in and now I know what I'm doing. And then, of course, a couple of years later, same thing. They're looking back saying, I don't know what it's doing. But comics, when they've been doing this for about 20 years, some of the successful ones seem to realize that they're in it for themselves and they're on stage for themselves and not for the audience. And that to them is like a breakthrough level. And I've not been able to figure out how to make that work for me. But some people say, once I realized it wasn't about the audience, I got better, which is still surprising to me.
I've heard a couple of them recently say that.
It's an
innate need. It's an innate need for people to look at me and listen to me. It's all about me. It's not about them at all. It's about what I need from them, not what they're getting from me.
Yeah.
So no, I get that.
But you learn to give that to get what you want. Because ultimately, anything that you do, like that's for a public, for the audience, it's ultimately for you. Period. It's the ultimate expression of narcissism.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not so good at it. I'm not.
Well, no, I always laugh that almost all artists of any kind, to be successful, there's this like dichotomy of like crippling insecurity and narcissism that kind of make this weird, like they're really fucked up ones. But I mean, there's always going to be exceptions, but like most musicians I knew that were really good were super cocky until you started talking to them. They're just like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough.
So Shaun, the first time you went on stage, open mic, whatever it was, like, how did that experience go?
It was odd. I'd taken a comedy class, and the way all the comedy classes work is you're in front of the class, and it's a supportive environment, and you help each other with jokes, and you learn how to use a microphone and learn some techniques to write. And then the graduation show is like at 6 o'clock at night at a comedy club, and the audience is basically friends and family of the people in the class. So everybody's supportive, and at least half of the comedians there have never been on stage before. And some have, but I would say half hadn't. And I've been writing jokes for a long time. I'd never performed before, but I knew my material didn't suck. I knew I was going to be a bad performer. I hope you're going to share that note with the class.
No, it's for my own benefit.
Yeah. So I was really mostly worried about forgetting my material, and I literally took the day before off for my day job and went through my 5 minutes 100 times, and I was pretty confident I wouldn't forget, but I was still scared to death. So I said to the guy running the show, I'm really nervous. I want to go up early in the lineup. Just don't put me up first. So he put me up first. And it went well. I mean, as far as the first show could go, it went well. And the weirdest thing, because I don't smoke, but after my set, I went outside and I wanted to smoke a cigarette. I'd never had that happen before. It just felt like I should have a cigarette, and I have no explanation for that.
That's how I feel every time I do one menial task. Like, oh God, I do the cigarette.
Andrew Dice Clay syndrome. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, as soon as you said that you told him not to put you up first, that's mine went up. Yeah, he put you up first.
I guess he had confidence in me, because you want to make. Well, there was an MC who warmed up the crowd, but you need the beginning comics to not suck.
Yeah, right, for sure.
Interesting. So how long did it take you to get comfortable on stage?
Long time. I mean, when I started out, there were nights I literally would hope the show would get canceled, so I wouldn't go on. I never threw up before a show, but there were comics who, I heard stories of like they threw up before their first 100 shows, and believe me, if I'd been throwing up, I never would have gone back. But I would probably say reasonably comfortable 7-8 years, and now it to me. And I'd always have to have everything planned out. Now, if you give me a 10 or 15-minute spot at a comedy club, I'm not even going to think about what I'm going to talk about before I get there, because something is going to trigger me. Now, if I'm doing 45 minutes, I have, a 45-minute set that I would do. But if you're giving me a short set, and to me now 15 minutes used to seem long and now it's short, I will literally not have any idea what I'm going to talk about. And maybe the comedian before me will say something, and I'll have a joke on that topic, and then I'll start riffing on that, where somebody in the audience will be from somewhere or have a career. I'll be like, oh, so you're a dentist. And then I'll think of something to say about dentists, and then just take off from there.
Nice.
Gotcha. So in the pandemic, a lot of comedians have started podcasts. Is that something you have considered or something you've done?
I did. I started a podcast with a guy who has a business organization, and he came to a show. I met him at a show I did in your favorite state, New Jersey, about a decade ago. We've always tried to find a way for us to do business together, and it never really happened. And then when the pandemic hit, he called me up and he said, why don't we do a podcast? I'm doing podcasts interviewing business people. Why don't we interview comedians? And we did, 25 or 30 of them. And then he just disappeared. I mean, he's still around, but he just stopped. He didn't show up for the podcast one day.
Wow.
And I wrote, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize we were doing it today. I'm like, do you want to do another one? And that was it. So I did a few of my own, but there's a million.
Oh yeah, there's a lot out there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this one started entirely off of like we've known each other since we were in high school.
Yeah,
and we've never lived in the same state other than we were in high school. And then I moved here for a job, and we're like, hey, it's an excuse to hang out from time to time. And like, I fully expected to hate you and quit by now, and I hate you. I just haven't quit by now.
I think at some point we're going to be in that same boat where you're going to show up to the podcast one night. I'm just not going to come unlock the door.
Yeah. I tell you, dude, when I quit, I'm quitting on an episode on the live stream. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
But 20 minutes in, so you still
I don't have to fill any time.
I just cut it off.
No, I can't. Like,
yeah, but if you're going to do that, you got to make sure the guest is in on it and the guest disappears too.
Just leave y'all by yourself.
Gone.
Yeah. I'll wait till at least the 100th episode though.
Yeah, we should have done that to Jay last week. Should have argued and then said we quit right in the middle.
That would have been great.
Oh God. Oh man. Well, I feel like I've been asking a lot of questions.
Well, like I said, like I'm interested in. I've enjoyed the conversation. Just for me, like doing the music thing for so long, I see everything through that lens, and I have no idea how like any type of career or even path in comedy works.
Gotcha.
I mean, other than what you've told me, which I don't listen to.
It's hard because there's no HR department, there's no coaches, there's nobody you can turn to. By the time you get a manager, you've already figured it out. So you're good enough that somebody says, oh, I can make money from this guy. So I guess it's tough starting any business, but the only thing you can do is hope that you're just not an asshole and some people will help you out and make suggestions along the way.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think those are the instances where like you have to look out for yourself because people absolutely take advantage of you, but that's when it's important to that community has to exist a little bit. Like you said, somebody that is going to see you as something worth kind of investing time in. Granted, they're going to make money off of you. Eventually it's the plan, but even then, like up and coming comedians, if you're at a point to help them out, like that whole cyclical thing where it becomes, it's still selfish, but it's a selfless type of selfishness.
Yeah. So that kind of opens up the door for the next question I have is like, have there been any comedians through the years that were just starting out or whatever that you've kind of, for lack of a better phrase, taken under your wing or tried to help out or give advice or whatever, let them open for you?
Not so much, but I was in Ireland about 3 years ago and I was doing a show, and I'm used to being like the new guy. Even, 15 years in, I was still looking at people like, Jim Gaffigan or, people who've been on Letterman or Colbert or The Tonight Show. People I work with regularly are way above me. And I'm used to being, the kid, even though I'm older than most of them. but I'm used to being like the new guy. And I was doing a show in Ireland, and there are all these, it was like 4 or 5 opening acts and me headlining. And they were asking me questions, and I'm like, this is so weird that I'm the one getting asked the questions.
Yeah.
Instead of asking. But it was kind of odd because one of the questions I got, somebody said, you know, your set really built. It was, you know, in the perfect progression of the way you went from story to story to story. How long did it take you to figure out what order to do that all in? And I'm like, there's no order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just I think some of that. Yeah.
Just the way things occurred to me is the way I told them. There was no thought involved.
Well, that's what I say. I think there's a degree, like, it's like anything else. Like, you can learn any craft, right? But to have a natural like instinct with it is a whole different ball game. And to me, that's one of the things that can separate, like, really, again, music or comedians, the really, really good, the greats from like the guys that are still good,
right?
But you know, just that natural rhythm and flow, that instinct that comes along with it.
You know what I've noticed in the last year when I've been working out at home a lot and watching, you know, comedians shows on Netflix, you know, watching some specials of people like Dave Chappelle, is how much slower they are. And I don't know whether it's the way they work or whether it's just because it's on TV and they need the ability to edit. And it's much harder to edit if you start your next joke when there's even some laughter going on, because then the editor's got 10 times as much work to do with the sound if they're going to cut something out or switch the order. And he would be, and a lot of comics would be slow, and then when deliver the punchline and wait for all of the laughter to die down. And when you're doing a show in front of more than a couple hundred people, that's a long amount of time to just sit there and wait for the laughter.
I wondered also, and I've never thought of it the way you just explained that them doing that on purpose, but I wonder if some of that isn't the editing. If it just seems like they're waiting on the laughter to die down and they use those cuts to the crowd and things like that and keep the audio in and then edit in the start of the next joke, one, so that there's less material that they're using and it makes the special longer, but it also then gives a moment for the people at home to kind of laugh and get prepared for the next joke. I mean, because I think a special is an interesting thing that you are playing to the crowd there, but you also, because they know they're filming, especially like this, like, oh, hey, by the way, we filmed this and we're putting it on Netflix. So you do have to consider, what is this going to play to people sitting on their couch as well. But that's I've never thought of it the way you just explained it.
Well, it was weird because I thought of that. I shot a special a year and a half ago with 5 other comics, and one of the comics runs the production company. I said to him, Jim, should we tell the comedians not to step on their laughter and specifically to do exactly that so we can edit? And he's like, no, they're under enough pressure as it is, being on a TV shoot. Don't have them change the way they deliver their jokes. They've been doing this, for 20 or 25 years. This is how they do it. Let them do it the way they do it. And then when it came to editing, it was a bitch.
Yeah.
What's the name of that special?
It's the Ivy League of Comedy from the Emlyn Theater, and we haven't sold it yet, but I know you guys have all the connections in TV, and
obviously.
The pandemic has made it really hard to just get people's attention, and we want to sell it as an ongoing show, not a special, and it's hard to do that when nobody knows when you can shoot the next one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You were fixed to say something.
I know, and I just completely derailed myself. It was right there, and it was going to be. It was the most intriguing question of the night, and it's just fucking gone.
Oh, I have a complaint. You guys aren't drinking nearly enough.
It's because it's so bad.
Did you add soda to it, or are you drinking it just with the ice?
No, the soda's just separate.
It's just for a chaser.
There.
You're right. I'm suffering much more than you with this.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you buy a different thing every time, and you've done almost 100 of these, but it's not hard to find 100 different bottles in a liquor store.
No, it's not.
It's not, and we go through spells where we try to get something that we will enjoy, and it's hard to find. I mean, we know what we like. We like Irish whiskey, and we have a handful of Irish whiskey. You like bourbon. I'm not as much of a bourbon guy, but we have a handful of Irish whiskeys that we really like, and then the rest is just okay. And then I started trying to buy stuff made in the state of Tennessee and bringing it. Hence the tequila.
Always terrible.
Right. Well, whatever. Shop local, man.
If local would make good shit, I would shop local.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. every once in a while we do a grab bag where we just basically go to the airplane bottles and grab 8, and we you just reach in the bag, you don't see what you're getting, you pull it out, and you got to drink whatever comes out. So,
well, my brother gave me I don't know if he gave it to me or he left it to me. There was, when my brother moved, he moved out of New York City, and he's like, anything that's in the apartment, I helped him clean out. And he said, anything I leave in the apartment is garbage. You could have it. And there was like a 6-pack of beer in his fridge, which turned out to be like 15 years old that he bought for a party. And it was no good. But there was also a bottle of Claymore Scotch. And I'm like, oh, okay, my brother likes Scotch. I'll try it. And it was beyond rot gut. It was just awful. And I'm like, Seth, where did this come from? And he said, oh, I was in the duty-free shop at Heathrow Airport, and I forgot whether it was £1 British if with any purchase, or whether literally it was a penny with any purchase. But whatever it was, that's why I had it. And I'm like, you overpaid. It was awful.
So this is how much of a pro Shaun is. Before we started recording, he said, oh yeah, I'll tell you the story about my brother Scotch. And I wrote it down so that later on I could ask about it. And he just naturally weaved it into the conversation.
Beautiful.
Well, I was afraid, since we also talked about something about my brother earlier in the show, that you might think that's what I was going to talk about. But
no.
Good story.
No, it's much better for you to weave it in, because then I don't have to try to remember it anymore now. So,
and God knows I won't remember.
I know you won't.
Well, here's the thing I just discovered. My brother's wife posted on Facebook a couple of days ago about a bottle of Scotch that they bought that they were sort of proud of. And I looked it up, and it's like $2,000. So I'm like, they need more Scotch in their life. They can't just be drinking stuff. And I tried to find it, and apparently they don't make it anymore, but there's a fan club.
Yeah.
And that I don't understand.
I like going to the because, with like Total Wine, they have the fancy booze section that I just like to go and look at and pretend like one day I might have enough money to buy a bottle.
Oh yeah, act like you're gonna buy one, like scratch your chin. Like,
yeah, can I? Let me look.
That's your fantasy, not robbing the place.
Well, that too, but man, they have a couple like $4,000 or $5,000 bottles of scotches and old aged bourbons and.
We're not Scotch fans. We had Scotch. I guess we've had it twice. You had a grab bag bottle. But
I will say though, I had really good Scotch at David Culberth's house, and it was tolerable for me.
Tolerable. I had really good Scotch. It was tolerable.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the only Scotch I could have, I could drink on a regular basis.
Yes. No, I think we had Johnny Walker, because of a Swedish guy we had on, said, yeah, just drink Johnny Walker. Like,
which one? There's like 5 of them, and 2 of them are
the cheapest one.
The worst one.
The cheapest one.
Johnny Walker Red is not very good, I don't think.
No, well, there you go.
But I had a friend serve me a long time ago, before I drank much wine. He served me some port, and he said, what do you think? I said, oh, it's pretty good. And he's like, it's 80, and this was 20 years ago. He's like, it's $80 a bottle, and I'm like, it's not that good.
Yeah, I've had some expensive wine before. I've had $200 a bottle wholesale price wine before. There's that absolute difference. Like, I've heard a lot of people say there's no difference between the $10 bottles and the $100 bottles. Like, yeah, there is. When you get up there at a certain point, it's no hangover, no headache. It was just so much
different than the actual.
You're not singing the merits of the taste. You're like, it didn't kill me.
It tastes good as well. I just assume that was implied. You can absolutely tell the difference. I'm saying, plus there's no hangover.
See, I don't have that much a refined palate for wine,
and I don't either.
I'm just saying,
I can tell what tastes good and what doesn't.
Okay, I can't tell the difference between.
Well, when I was a banker, I think it was Merrill Lynch had an event, and they had a guy who's like one of the leading wine guys pouring. It was a golf outing, so people played golf, people played tennis. They also had skeet shooting, which is good because I don't play golf or tennis. And then they had a wine, they had, I guess, they didn't even call it a wine tasting. And people are coming in off the golf course and just saying, give me some of this, and they're drinking it. And I looked at the list, and it was, there's 5 Bordeaux houses, which are like the 5 that are by French law the best and most expensive. Yeah. And at the time, 1982 was the best year for Bordeaux in anybody's memory. And of those 5 first growth Bordeaux, they had 4 of them from 1982. And I was going around to the people I knew saying, don't just be drinking this. You will never in your life have a chance to taste these wines again. So pay attention to what you're drinking. And I discovered that that's a waste of money on me because I don't like Bordeaux.
Right.
But at least I got to find that out with the top.
Sure. Right. Absolutely. Now, I can absolutely tell difference with whiskeys for sure,
Yeah.
but I can't with like wine and like even with scotches. Like I was enough to tolerate it, but not like, oh, this one's more smoky. This one's more. It's like, don't taste like I'm gagging on a penis. Like it's awful. That peatiness, man. I
peat is
can't
closer
stand
to the
Wait a minute,
water.
penis.
It wasn't mine that
How
time.
many of you tasted? How do you know that some of them aren't good?
I've sampled a large enough piece of the pie, sir.
It's a control sample.
It's control.
Well, to make it more pleasant, I was talking to my brother about how to preserve wine, and there's a few ways when you have an open bottle what to do. And I said, okay, one of the things I do is I put it in the refrigerator because chemical reaction, even red wine, chemical reactions slow down at colder temperatures. So I went over there with wine from the same bottle. Some I put into a little bottle and filled it all the way, so there was no air in the bottle, and the other one I didn't. And I went to my brother's house and we did a blind taste test, and I discovered I like the open bottle better. And then he was like, well, then you have no right to talk about wine anymore. I'm like, no, it was breathing perfectly for a week.
Yeah, I brought in a 3-year-old room temperature sitting on my fridge bottle of sake for him to drink in here one night, and it was awful. I didn't know that sake could go like rancid and bad, but that is incorrect.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Whatever.
I remember what I was going to say a little bit ago, just to completely backtrack for everything. I remember my heart was broken when I found out that they don't shoot specials on one night. It's like 3 or 4 nights they were the same shit, and they cut the best together. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I hear a lot of them say they shoot. It's like they say like, yeah, we shot 2 nights, and they say most of what you see is from the second night.
Right.
Yeah.
Really, because we did 2 the same night, and I told the comics, unless a joke doesn't do well, don't do the same jokes in both shows because you want to give us twice as much material to choose from. And then we ended up taking almost everything from the first show because the editor liked the sound better from the audience. So that I did.
Well, go figure. Yeah, I was just that was what was in my mind earlier, and I completely forgot about it.
Why does that disappoint you? Albums aren't made that way.
What?
Music albums aren't made that way.
Live albums are. Well, no, they're because the same way. It's of course over 2 or 3 nights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why does that bother you so bad? That
it didn't bother me. It broke the illusion that I had of comedy.
Okay.
Point in time.
Well, also they may edit stuff out, like when they do a Comedy Central Presents, and it's a half hour with commercials, so it's like 22 minutes.
Sure.
And comedians usually do way over a half hour for those specials, and then it gets edited down. And the harder part for the comedian is not that they take out some jokes so much as they cut up the existing jokes. So you may have a 6-minute story, and they'll take 3 minutes of that 6 minutes, and now you're like, I just lost a 6-minute story. I did it on television.
Sure.
As opposed to if they used all 6 minutes, then they wouldn't have used other stuff. So it's sort of burning through your jokes like
that.
Yeah. I heard the story of one comic. He's like, I did 23 minutes and walked off stage, so they couldn't do that to me.
I feel like I heard someone else tell a story about somebody doing that before. I can't remember who it was or who they were talking about, but it's genius. I mean, to cut it down to only what they can use. That's genius.
Yeah, but you better hope they didn't screw something up. Like the special we shot, the mic interference. We made a mistake and we didn't know it at the time. We used wireless mics, which are easier to use. And it was a theater, it was professional mics, but the police and fire station is across the street. And a radio call sort of screwed up somebody's. It was only like 30 seconds, but we couldn't use that joke because there was bad audio for 30 seconds.
Yeah. So, you ever done late night TV before?
No, I have not, and I would love to. And either I'm not good enough or I'm too old because pretty much everybody getting a late night set now. I'm not talking about Jerry Seinfeld. I'm talking about people doing their first one are much younger. And I have a colleague, Josh Homer, and he said when he was 25 and started doing comedy, he went to the TV people and said, I want to be on TV. And they're like, you need 10 more years of experience. Come back when you're 35. And he came back at 35 and they were like, well, now we're looking for 25-year-olds.
Right.
That's pretty much the way it is. If you look at people getting the late night sets, they're way young. And in my opinion, a lot of them aren't ready, but it's not my decision.
Sure. Well, late night now is over the last several years has started gearing itself more and more toward a younger crowd. Yeah. I mean, it's like they're trying to do what's the Comedy Central? the news, the Trevor Noah, and it used to be Jon
The
Stewart.
Daily Show.
Like Daily Show picked up just this huge following of young adults, and it paid off. And it was great. I mean, Jon Stewart was great. I don't care for it as much with Trevor Noah. I don't think he's as funny or as good as Jon Stewart was, but I think that your late nights, I mean, especially like your Jimmy Fallon's and James Corden, some of them are really trying to pick up that younger audience. Whereas I can remember when I was young, I really wasn't that interested in late night stuff.
Conan, man.
Conan was great, but we were late teens, young adults when Conan was really in popularity.
Well, I think part of it, and listen, it's what the advertisers want. And if the audience is 30 years old, they don't want a comedian that's their dad's age. I can't argue with the business side of it. It just sucks for me.
Yeah, but even if you look at like the bits that Fallon does, take the guess out of it, just the bits that he does seems to be, geared toward a younger audience. And shit, he's older than I am. So, I mean,
well, I knew somebody who was booked to be on one of the late night shows, and they said, sorry, we're not putting you on the show. And he was specifically told, we now have a policy, nobody not already famous. I'm not a comedian. This is an author. Was told no, and an interesting guy with a lot to talk about. Was told nobody not already famous is going to be on the show because we want the audience to see famous people, which is weird. Right. If you go back to the Johnny Carson days, what made the Tonight Show interesting then is he would have some weird person on that nobody'd heard of.
Yeah,
he'd have an 85-year-old female karate instructor, and you would not meet a person like that. That's somebody I want to hear about.
Right. And maybe I'm incorrect, but in my mind, you had a lot of like breaking comedian, like they were on the cusp, and there was kind of a push in
Carson. I can't remember his booker's name. Why can't I remember his name? But anyway, they would go to the Comedy Store and find these young comedians doing the open mics or even before they were getting paid to do it, and getting the guys to come and be on the Tonight Show and do whatever 3, 4, 5 minutes.
I mean, there were no comedians in their 40s then. It was like basically the old guys. You had the Jack Benny, Borscht Belt guys, and then you had the people who started out in the comedy clubs, which are pretty new. So I don't know that you had that middle level of comics for them to put on. But if you watch, I mean, the Johnny Carson Tonight Show is in syndication now, and you can watch it. And the comedians that they were putting up then are good now, but their sets back then couldn't hold a candle to any comedian now. Just you watch it. Yeah. Oh, it's a 7-minute set with 8 punchlines. That would never fly now. Well, with exceptions. If you watch like Ellen's debut, and a lot of people, or Jerry Seinfeld, they were punchline, but a lot of them you're like, this is a very long story to get to a laugh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
One of the things that, and I think we touched on this a little bit, but it amazes me. Comedy is one of the few, I guess, performance art areas I've seen that have the type of community that it comes in waves. Yeah. It's very strange. Like coming out of, the SNL, like in the 80s, like that whole group just came up together. Then you had, on the, it's basically like all these people that became famous that all worked together at one point in time. They were all in, comedy troupes and improv, and they all kind of blow up, at least that core group, it's very strange to me.
Well, it's small core groups because you had UCB.
But what I'm saying is you have these communities, and it's not like, hey, you're the best guy in your small town, so now you're breaking the fuck out, and you're like, so like all these people come up. At least
back
on the
in the
TV
70s
side.
and 80s, everybody you had to go 2 directions. You went to New York or you went to Los Angeles.
I got
and that was it.
I just mean it sets it apart from other.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we can know each other, because we can all be at shows at a club or an open mic or hang out together. In music, I don't know whether you have that, because your band is your 4 or 5 people and you're only hanging out with each other.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I guess I can't speak to the comedy side, but it's also weirdly like bands feel like they don't want to share fans, which is stupid.
It is
because you can like more than one band, but they're very protective of their fan base, and they don't usually want to perform with a band that could possibly win their fans over or could outperform them.
Well, we've run into that doing a podcast, having other podcasters come on with us, and they have a great time, and then they don't have, like, that's the kind of the unspoken agreement. It's like, you come be on our show, maybe some of our fans will like you and they will listen to you now as well. It's a podcast you download. It's not live that you got to watch it live, and then we'll do the same thing and we'll help each other.
But I don't feel like that's as intentional though.
I think sometimes it is.
Maybe.
absolutely believe.
But I mean, I've been straight up told, like, no, you're not playing the show with us.
Oh no, I get that.
Reason.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, if you'd stop them crappy apple whiskey, they'd be having you on.
Right.
Well,
or if we were decent hosts, or whatever the case may be. But even with us, man, listen to even the evolution of our stuff in the last episodes it's
absolutely. That's how it should be, though.
Let me rephrase that. In some areas, it's much better. There's other areas it's like, fuck, these guys just let themselves go.
Yeah, whatever. It's a natural progression,
right?
So when you were starting out, or even after you've been doing it a few years or longer, or even now, like, was there any comedian that you kind of not really modeled yourself after, but kind of looked up to and took in, not that they were giving you direct pointers or tips, but you kind of looked at them to kind of learn maybe the business or the craft? Anyone like that?
I think when I started, there were a couple of people I looked at, and unfortunately, when I started, one of the examples that the instructor in our comedy class used, he played a bunch of sets of Bill Cosby, and Bill Cosby was a storyteller, and I looked at that and I'm like, I wish I had funny stories in my life to tell. I don't. I just have jokey stuff that I've written and not stories, and I really wish I could be more like him. And now I am a storyteller, but I'm also not a rapist. So I guess, but also I think
he takes a bite of Jello.
Yeah, I think, I'm one of those people, Steven, the same way. Like, I can separate the person from the art, and Bill Cosby's shit holds up to this day.
He's the funniest person in prison laundry.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Or doing his Sunday services that he does now. So
20 cents an hour.
Yeah.
One thing I'd still like to see, and we've joked about this before as well, is you don't see like a comedy cover artist that you go up there and do like a word for word, like a Seinfeld set, but in credit it and be like, hey, this is a blah, 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 or this is a Cosby set.
Sure.
And you just like
fans do it all the time. Why do comedians not do that?
Cover set.
Yeah. Well, I've actually seen at open mics, new comics will do that on occasion. And then somebody will say, hey, that's not done. And the reason is because you can listen to the same song 50 times and you may appreciate it more the 50th time than the first time. Comedy is about surprise. You hear a joke the second time,
sure,
it's not funny. Yeah. So, you got to.
That's one thing I've never understood too, that people will go to comedy shows and they expect like the same joke from like their favorite comedian, like every time. I'm like, you've heard the joke. It's not.
Yeah.
I know.
And I get that
they do that. But then again, I have a friend, when I started out in comedy, he was like, I went to this comedy club on Long Island and I saw the same comedian I saw 2 years earlier and he did the same jokes. Why didn't he write new jokes? And I'm like, because that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
It's very hard to write a new 45 minutes. You don't do it in 2 years. And also, if he's the kind of guy who's just working club on Long Island and isn't putting out a Comedy Central or a Netflix or an Amazon special every couple of years, he's doing the best 45 minutes he's got.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, from a fan's perspective, like I have no issue because you're playing in multiple cities. You don't know who's heard your stuff, who hasn't. But like as a fan, I'm not going to go to a show like I would a song and like, I want to hear my favorite song. I don't want to be like, hey, I want to hear this other joke that I've listened to on your comedy record that I've seen on your specials, but I want you to tell it again to me.
Last time I don't care what joke you tell. I don't care what joke you tell, old, new. I don't care. Just make me laugh. That's it.
And see, to me, that's not. I'm not talking about like from the comedian standpoint. I'm talking about I don't understand from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
Like to me, hearing the same joke over again.
If you've never seen it live, I could see you're like, oh, I want to hear that joke live.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes you have a signature bit. If you're Jeff Foxworthy doing, you might be a redneck. If people want to hear that, even if he's like, I haven't done that. I don't want to do that anymore. I made my book with that joke, but it's enough.
I guess so.
I mean, Bert Kreischer has to tell the machine story at the end of his set almost every night. He has to. It's still a great story, and I'm sure he tweaks it here and there. But I think he does all his new stuff, and then at the end of his set, because he knows everybody wants to hear it, and they're all drinking. It's his fans; they're all drinking heavy anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
So he has to do that. But I get what you're saying and agree.
Do you want to hear him tell that same, what is it, like 13-minute story? So that's a third.
Yeah, it's about 13 minutes. Yeah.
Do you want to hear that the fifth time you saw him?
No, I wouldn't want to, but I've also never seen him live. But it would be nice to hear him do that live. But if he doesn't, I'm not going to be pissed. That's the thing. Like,
but
if I'm going to see a comedian, I don't care if you tell me something I've heard before or if you tell me something that's new. just make me laugh. That's it. Just make me laugh.
It is different because if Springsteen didn't play Born to Run, that'd be a riot.
God, if I had to go see Bruce Springsteen in concert, I'd shoot myself. I'm born to run from that.
Run, yeah.
I'm just not a fan of Springsteen. He's talented. He's really he's done a great job, but
yeah, he was from New York,
Bruce
right?
Springsteen.
Well, what I mean is it's Jersey. He's from Jersey.
I'm joking. Yeah,
that's but I mean that's his signature song. And some, I guess I don't know that much about music, but some artists have one. You know, some don't. I'm sure Paul McCartney is sick of singing Yesterday, but he's got a billion other songs.
Yeah, but I guess too, if you're at a point where like you're making a shit ton of money, yeah, sure, I'll tell the same thing every night. Yeah. I'll play the same song every night for the rest of my life if I'm bringing in millions of dollars of royalties a year. I don't care.
Yeah, but the reason some fans don't like going to concerts is they think they're there to hear the songs that they already know, and the musicians are like, we're here to sell our new album, so we want to play songs from the new album. And it's sometimes you got to hear a song a bunch before you like it, so you're not going to love the concert as much if they play music.
That's a really weird like tightrope to walk to is making a set list of songs that people love and throwing the new ones in there. And it's that same thing. There's a flow that it has to go in naturally. So you're not cramming the new thing down somebody's throat, but they're still kind of open to absorbing it in between the shit that they're there to hear. It's a very weird thing.
But it's weird. Like Guthrie, he made his career on Alice's Restaurant, and it's a long song, and he didn't like playing it. He was sick of it because it was the only thing he was known for. And he's like, no, I'm a folk musician. I want to play music. I don't want to just tell that story that's not musically interesting to me. Right. But people wanted to hear, but the word got out, you know, you can buy all the tickets you want to see him, and he's not going to play it.
Right.
So how do you feel about all these comedians that are rotating that material out every, 1 to 2 years now? I mean, some of them are doing a special every 2 years, and so then they writing a new hour after that. But so how do you feel about that? I mean,
you call it an hour, but as we talked about with like a Netflix special, it might be a half hour's worth of material, especially because if you're doing it in a stadium or not a stadium, you're doing a 3,000 seat place, you're going to get 20 or 30 seconds worth of laughter a lot, and that just eats up time. So it's not a ton of material. Listen, if you can turn out new material at that rate, great. I mean, there's a comedian here in New York that I think is brilliant, Joe DeVito. And he just, every time I look at him, he's got new jokes. And I asked him about it, and he's like, I just get bored really easily, and I got sick of my old jokes, and I want new ones. But he's a really good writer and can really crank them out. But there's other people, I'm not going to mention any names, who, they'll come out with a new 45 minutes every couple of years, but it's just not that good.
Yeah. I mean, this is fascinating to me. Like, it legitimately is, because I know nothing. And this is stuff that I know that you talked about, right? Like, I just, yeah.
But here's the thing. If you're Dave Chappelle or Chris Rock or somebody like that, all you have to do in your career is write and perform jokes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You don't wait in line in an open mic. If you're Chris Rock, you just walk into the club and you go right on stage and you try your jokes out and then you go home. And that's all you have to do. He's not making his own travel arrangements. He's not booking shows. He's not doing his own laundry. He's not doing his own taxes. All of his stuff is taken care of. So if he wants to spend 40 hours a week on comedy, he can spend 40 hours a week just writing and performing. He's not me spending 20 of my 40 hours begging for work. He's got all the stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
yeah, that goes across like, my wife always tells me, I'll be like, man, I wish I was ripped like that guy. She's like, well, if being ripped was your job, then you may get to that point.
Yeah, maybe he had to get ripped that way to get the job.
Okay.
No, just
okay.
Right, but he probably was unemployed for 10 years getting ripped.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly. My mommy won't let me live in her basement anymore.
I bet if you asked nicely, she would.
Yeah, my mom would.
I know.
Like, you could come. My dad would be like, hell no. But my mom would be like, yeah, sweetie, you could come home if you want.
My mom would let me because that means I'm found. So
you found Jesus.
I'm not lost anymore.
Why don't you two live in each other's parents' basements?
Right.
That would actually probably work.
Your parents would hate me so much.
They eventually, but they wouldn't at the beginning.
Your dad would immediately.
I don't know. We
both come from very Southern conservative Christian, like Baptist backgrounds, like our families and everything.
Oh no, mine's not bad. Well, my dad is, but
but that type of structure. Not everybody's had the taste of the Pentecostal church down here in the South. So,
but that's my.
I wouldn't understand that getting bulked up puts you closer to Jesus.
Right? Yeah, I guess.
I mean, cleanliness does, so why not?
Right. You got to have the lats so you can.
That's
it.
it.
You can stay up longer.
Yeah.
Dad, I'm going to get stronger, and there's only 2 ways I can do it. One is to live in your basement, lift weights 40 hours a week, and the other one is to go to prison and lift weights 40 hours a week.
Well, but if I get ripped, throw a wig on me, I can play Jesus in the nativity pageant. So if you've seen all the Baptist photos, Jesus was jacked.
Yeah. Yeah. And according to most churches in the Southeast, also white.
White. Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I
am a shoo-in.
Plenty of video of Jesus from 2,000 years ago that proves that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I was laughing, just purely based on his lineage. He's got to be Caucasian. It's the only thing. It's the only thing that makes sense.
Also American. He's American. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's Uncle Sam's his cousin. Oh God.
Well,
you're ready for a cigarette, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd say, Shaun, we usually take a break for about 5-10 minutes right here. You're welcome to hang out for the because we usually come back on and we do a little bit more time.
Yeah, we'll do another 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah.
So you're welcome to stay on, but if you need to go, that's fine too.
No, I'm fine. What? It's a Saturday night. What else could a comedian be doing?
Right. Hey, everybody. We'd like to take a minute to tell you about a really cool podcasting app called Stitcher Premium.
Yeah, Stitcher Premium is, like you said, a free app, and they've got everything you could look for: true crime, comedy, pop culture, The Office ladies. I think Conan O'Brien's podcast is on there. There's lots of things on there.
And archives of all those things.
Oh, yeah. And smart lists.
Yeah, the smart lists. That's what I was about to say, you fuck. Smart lists basically will watch what you're listening to, or listen to what you're listening to, use some fancy algorithms, and make recommendations on shit that you already like.
Yeah, so if you go to Stitcher.com/premium and use the code B3F, you can get a month free. So it's $4.99 a month or $34.99 if you pay for a full year. But use the code B3F and you'll get a free month.
Check it out. Hey, the wrong fader. There we go. How you doing? All right. So we had a comment come in. So a few weeks ago, it's been a few months now.
It's January, yeah.
So we had one of the big prominent voices in the flat Earth movement on here, and it was amazing. But the comment section was the best part of the entire episode. Just people just ridiculously attacking each other. But we actually just had another comment come in on the old YouTube for that, and Joey we wanted to share.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
it said this is from Hibbler Productions. I think you'll find out where they land on their beliefs in a moment. It says, "Ha ha 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 ha," crying, laughing face emoji. According to your controlled educational systems and the recycled Nazi corporation called NASA, you believe in the cartoon ball. Globe emoji, hand on face emoji, crying face emoji. They got all of you. 2 exclamation points on that sentence. Wake up already. Earth is not moving and is a stationary plane. Stop holding humanity back with your false ideologies. Plus, the government issued image of the flat Earth you're showing, none of us promote. So why would you act like that's what any of us speak of? Typical. You have to show a false image of what we know to make up for the false images of what you think you know.
So
thank you, Hibbler Productions.
So
I had a reply.
Where's the edge? That's what nobody told me where the edge of the Earth is.
It's not an edge; it's an ice wall.
Antarctica. But the where the aliens come from is evidently there are other walls outside of our walls, and so they're, what do they say?
Extraterrestrial.
Extraterrestrial.
There's more terrain outside that ice wall that some people have managed to get past without being caught.
And other species of humanoids.
I don't remember hearing that point.
Well,
because they wouldn't call anything extraterrestrial. They called them extraterrestrial.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Here's the problem. Not one of these flat earthers has enough money to actually buy an airplane and fly it to the edge to take a picture of this ice wall.
Sure. I mean, I agree.
Well, they just kept flying and kept ending up where they started. They couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on.
If you go this way, it's south. If you go this way, it's south. If you go this way, is east, and so is this way, because you're going to get back to the same place. Is what the way they say it. It was a great conversation. Like David Weiss really was a fun guy to talk to.
He was a great guest.
He was a fun guy to talk to. I expected him to be a jerk, and he wasn't. And
other than making fun of my Star Wars shirt,
that's true.
That hurt my feelings a little.
Well, the great thing about that is he didn't realize you had a Star Wars shirt on, and he made fun of it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we still get hate messages from the flat Earth folks from time to time. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. Whatever.
Don't they realize that hate is a circular emotion, and that proves the Earth is round?
I like it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But I wish like a good drinking game for that show would be take a shot every time somebody says firmament.
Firmament.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's the firmament. Yeah.
Oh
that's what holds it all. That's what holds it all in.
We had the one guy that was trying to explain how the Bible
oh my God
supports flat Earth. Yeah. So whatever.
All I can say is I was in Australia and New Zealand a year and a half ago, and they are upside down because I had to hold my drink like this or all the stuff would have poured out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Logic.
I remember all the cartoons back in the day. You had to drill through the earth to get to China.
Right, so. Straight through. It's the only way to get there.
You also had like the road runner running off the edge of the cliff, and until he looked down, he wouldn't fall. Yeah. So clearly, but gravity's all
because gravity's fake, and then all of a sudden he believed in it and he fell.
Yeah,
so that's it.
Yeah,
there's no such thing as gravity. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
It's so much fun. That's just like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, I know.
Because at first we had the horde of people that were yelling at us because they assumed we were flat earthers because we were talking to a flat earther, and that soon became followed up by the flat earthers that hate us because you said that you were a cube earther.
Yeah.
So that.
Well, I can explain cube Earth perfectly. Okay, here's how I know the Earth is cubed. When you get out into the ocean and there's the waves, and the wave comes up like this, and the boat, you watch the boats go up and over. You're hitting that edge of the cube and going over to the other side.
Perfect.
Boom. There's your proof.
So then it would be like more than a cube. It would be like a million-sided thing because in the ocean you hit a lot of waves.
Now you're just poking holes in his logic. He's going to deny
No. You don't have any proof of that.
It's like a 1,000-side hedron, whatever they call it.
That's what NASA wants you to think. Fucking Nazis.
Jesus Christ.
He said it was flat.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Oh God. Anyway. Yeah.
That just went bad.
What does Buddha have to say?
Right.
Obviously, he thinks it's round.
Obviously.
Because he's round.
That's it.
Yeah.
My God. Maybe the Earth is Buddha shaped and we're just on his belly.
Could be. That could be. That actually makes more sense than flat Earth to me.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh Jesus. Oh well.
And this episode is going so well.
It was until you made me read that comment.
I know. I enjoyed the comment though.
How do you think I feel? I think the guest is what determines the quality of the podcast. And this is all on me.
I felt like you and I have had a good back and forth, and Steven's just tired.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I think what you mean is sober.
It
wouldn't help. I'd be asleep if I was drinking too much.
I don't think this is fair. You guys have an entire bottle of whiskey on your thing. I've got a glass of wine, and I'm the one who's getting tipsy, and you're not.
Well, but you have also to think how much we drink. We drink every week.
Well, I drink at work.
You also drink at work. But yes, we drink quite a bit during the week, so it takes a little more to get us tipsy. But you wouldn't be the first person to come on and get tipsy on one glass of wine. So,
well, I also didn't have much for dinner, so
yeah. Yeah, we had to pull one episode because our guest, she arrived intoxicated and then continued to drink heavily.
Yeah,
and then was worried she was going to get fired.
Yeah, as soon as that episode happened, then we just started telling everybody up front, "Hey, we don't edit anything. This is how it works."
Right.
I think she expected that we would just talk for a long time while she was drunk and then cut out the good stuff. I don't think you realize what we think is good.
I guess you're not going to tell people who it was, but can you give us an idea of what industry she was in?
Radio.
Oh wow, that's bizarre because radio's live and not edited.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
She was drinking before she got here. She continued to drink heavily while she was here. and got to the point where she was making threats to the sitting president and lots of things that when we released the episode, she got calls from her boss because she promoted it. She got calls from her boss and was like, this comes down or you lose your job.
Yeah.
So,
and we're assholes, but we're not that big of assholes.
Sure, we don't need anybody to lose their job.
Yeah.
So,
well,
anyway.
But there's a part of us that was like, well, you are a grown human being that made these decisions. But
is this somebody who's known to have a drinking problem?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think it was just a special evening.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't drink when I go on stage, with the only exceptions that I used to MC a show at a wine bar. So I'd go up and I'd do my 15 minutes, and then the only thing I had to do after that was introduce the other two comics. And since it was a wine bar and I like Burgundy, I would usually get a glass of Burgundy when I introduced the next comic, and I would take a drink on stage and I would tell them about how much I liked that wine. But that was it. Otherwise, I mean, I used to work comic at a comedy club, and when you'd MC in a New York comedy club, you might have 10 comics in a night, and you'd always walk on stage with a beer and take some beer. And I thought, wow, he's been holding that beer. And then I realized he was going into the kitchen where the bar, where he could get a drink between every single comic. And I noticed every time he went on stage, the level of the beer in the bottle was different, up and down. I realized he probably had 10 beers, and I could hear it in his voice by the end of the night.
I thought you were going to say he was filling it with water so he didn't get drunk. But yeah, never mind.
I had a buddy that I used to play with, and he had to either be completely just like blitz stoned or just drunk as shit, or else he would get such bad stage fright.
Wow.
And he finally got over it because I never could play. Well, the exception of some really bad decisions, for the most part, I never played. I would get shit faced after I played, but I couldn't play junk.
Yeah.
I went to a Yankee game and had a couple of beers, and then did an open mic that night when I was starting out, and I forgot some material. And I don't know that it had anything to do with the alcohol, but I decided then I don't think I'm going to be better after a couple of drinks, because you got to know what you're doing. It's people, but when people meet me, they're like, "Oh, you should have a couple of drinks and loosen up before you go on stage." And I'd be like, "Would you say that to a golfer about to, sink a putt, or a lawyer about to argue in front of the Supreme Court? Why is it you think I have to get drunk to do my job?" Because there's a word for people who have to get drunk to do their job, and that word is alcoholic. So I don't know why people are telling me, "Oh, you should get, loosened up before you go do your job." That's weird.
So you're an alcoholic. You drink at work.
That's fair.
Apparently now I'm drinking at work.
No, our company is based in Manhattan. Like that's where our headquarters is, and they have a very old school, almost Mad Men mentality. Like people drink at work, and they there's exceptions.
Harass your receptionist.
No.
Oh, we said Mad Men.
I meant ask as far as drinking at work.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What's that?
What kind of company is it?
Let's see. We usually don't talk about our jobs. They do a lot of the LED displays on Times Square.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I do the system design side of that.
Wait, so can you get my face in Times Square?
If I want to get fired, yes.
An ex-girlfriend of mine just had her face up in Times Square, 30 feet tall.
Oh, yeah?
And we used to argue when we were dating about who was taller. And so when I saw that, I sent her a message saying, "Okay, you win. You're taller."
Nice.
Why was her face in Times Square?
There was something like 30 women on Wall Street or something, and they rang the bell at the stock exchange. So they rotated the faces of the 30 women or whatever number on Wall Street. So she has a picture of her face up there.
Nice. So I was going to ask you this, but I feel like I know the answer now, but you said you went to a Yankee game. I was going to ask you, are you Mets or Yankees?
No, I think they both suck.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I mean, I'm a capitalist, and I think that there's no greater bastion of capitalism than the New York Yankees, because they could, afford to buy any player, to the point where Major League Baseball, I don't know, more than a decade ago, I guess you guys know this if you're baseball fans, put in a system where payroll is limited, and if you paid your players more, you had to pay money back to the league, and they literally called it the Yankee tax.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I haven't watched when they canceled the World Series in 1994. I swear I would never watch another Major League Baseball game, and I now it's just an arbitrary rule, but I haven't watched baseball since then.
I like baseball, but it's hard to watch sometimes, especially when you have teams, the Yankees, and I'm a Red Sox fan, but the Red Sox did it too eventually. But all these teams that they're buying World Series. I mean, the NBA has been doing it for years now as well. But and I don't care for basketball that much anyway. But you know, when you start buying all these teams, like it's not really that fun anymore. Like, you know, these smaller teams aren't going to go in and beat the Yankees when they're spending all that money on their team. So it's just
then
not
maybe
as fun.
they should make it that like your payroll factors into how many runs or how many outs or how many strikes you have to get. So if your payroll is half, you get 5 strikes before you're struck out.
Yeah, I like that. I might start watching it if they implement some shit like that. Yeah, absolutely. Because right now, if it's not minor league local hockey, I'm not watching it.
Sure.
Well, that would be great because that like a Yankee batter would go up and the first pitch, the umpire would be like, foul ball, strike 3, you're out. Like your payroll's too big.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. That would be amazing to watch.
It's a fair system.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure. I don't know. I just put a salary cap on everybody, on all the teams. You can only do a certain amount of money, spend a certain amount of money, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, they had that in the old days where they got into like in the 60s and before where the league decided what players were paid. And they didn't get paid very much, but I think they got in legal trouble and now they can pay their players.
I think they should add like at least 5% of your starting lineup has to be over 60.
I think that just the coach or manager, whatever you want to call them, they're in uniform. Yeah. They should have to go out there and play at least one inning on the field every game. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, bring Bo back.
Bring Bo back. I don't know that he could do it. I don't know he could do it. Bo knows he ain't got it anymore.
Or you know what would be easier? Just the distance of the pitcher from the mound is proportional to payroll.
Oh, that's pretty.
From second base.
Yeah, that's true. That would be, you'd be seeing pitchers have to go with one arm just jacked so they can get it to the plate.
Was that lady in the water?
The guy who's living in the basement, you mean, lifting weights all day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they lift weights because they're not doing steroids.
Well, they are.
Yeah. To me, you should just legalize steroids. Yeah, just make that okay.
HGH.
Yeah, just let them go for it. Yeah, whatever. Anyway. Oh, Jesus. So we got this thing that we do every once in a while called the bag of shit. And periodically we write little things down. We think of maybe a phrase or a word or whatever, and it's just random. And we drop it into this little bag, aptly named the bag of shit. And then we draw it out. It's getting low, but we draw something out, and then we just talk about whatever it is. And it's whatever you think of. It doesn't matter. If it says mowing the lawn and it makes you think of baseball, then fine. It doesn't matter. So anything goes. So we thought we might play around a bag of shit with a comedian. So
everything makes me think of breasts. So whatever you pull out, that's
yeah. Damn. You should co-host this with us. We did the same thing. So this first one is yours. We can all three talk about it, but I'll draw for you since you're not here. Let me make sure I get it mixed up really good. And
because we don't know, because Sabia put some stuff in when he was here.
Did he?
Yeah,
I can remember. All right. Snakes.
Oh, I hate snakes.
So you hate snakes?
I don't understand. People keep them as pets, and I'm like, they have no personality. All they want to do is kill you.
That I don't understand, the whole pet snake thing. My wife is terrified of snakes. My mom was terrified of snakes. I don't, if I run up on one and it catches me off guard, it's going to startle me, but I'm really not that scared of snakes. Spiders, on the other hand, but spiders, I'm getting better, but man, they give me the heaves. Nothing should have that many legs. No, snakes is an interesting.
I've eaten rattlesnake.
Have you? I don't think I've eaten snake. I'm not sure.
Not particularly good, which is maybe why we don't eat them very often.
Yeah. So I know a guy that dated a girl that had a pet snake, and I can't remember what kind it was, but she would let she'd get the snake out of the aquarium, terrarium, whatever, and let it sleep in the bed with her.
Ew.
And she started noticing that when she would wake up in the morning, the snake, instead of being coiled up like normal, was laying stretched out completely next to her. And she thought, body warmth. It's trying to, whatever, stay warm. And it continued to do that and she took it to a specialist, a vet specialist, and said, "What's going on? I'm concerned that something's wrong with my snake." And the vet said, "Your snake is sizing you up and growing, and it's waiting until it's bigger than you, and then you are no longer the owner." So that's an interesting.
What kind of snake was this that she had? As
I can't remember. I mean, I'm gonna assume it was a python or constrictor or something. Yeah.
Oh, you got to be nuts to have to let a pet like that in a cage.
Well, I can remember I read, and I'll never forget, it was when I was younger, like a kid, but it was some story of some dude that had a big pet boa, and he woke up with the thing like up to his knee, like its mouth over it.
Really?
Yeah. And he had
wow.
He had to call, and they had to like kill the snake and cut it off his leg because that motherfucker had a grip. But yeah, it had swallowed him up to his knee and was trying to work its way up.
I thought they kill you first and then they eat you.
I don't know. Some snakes don't. Some snakes will eat you alive.
I have no idea.
But
snakes are crazy to me, though. They're the craziest animals.
Yeah.
Like,
my 19-year-old daughter wants a pet snake. My wife's like, "Not while you're living at home."
Yeah.
No.
They're death worms.
That's really what
they're
they are.
Big ass death worms.
Well, I mean, God took their legs away for a reason. So
goddamn apples.
So, do you remember the guy? Has probably been 5 years or so ago that decided he was going to put this suit on with cameras and let a snake swallow him, and they had like ropes or something tied around his legs so that they could pull, like his crew or whatever could pull him out.
That's not how snakes work.
It was not my idea for him to do this, but he was going to let these cameras video what it's like being swallowed by a snake.
Couldn't they do that with a smaller animal? Why do they need a person?
Exactly what I was just thinking.
I don't know, but he wanted to experience it, be able to tell what it was like and all that stuff. And it didn't work. I mean, obviously, because we would have all heard about this idiot being eaten by a snake. But yeah, it was an insane thing.
Because they still have fucking fangs. Like it's still going to dig in.
Not all snakes have fangs. No. Some of them have teeth, but they don't use that as that's more for grip to then move their body, but they don't. Not all snakes have.
I know all about teeth for grip.
Sure, I got you.
You don't have to.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right,
go ahead. I'll let you go.
Pull out another topic.
Yeah.
I've never been good at pulling out. All right, let's see. All right. How'd you throw that one back in there? We now have two with snakes.
I didn't throw it back in. There it is. That's funny.
That's you and Mike. All right,
we're doing different. The snakes put them in.
Yeah,
right?
That's what it is.
Actually, when you first said snakes, I immediately thought of Jake the Snake.
Did you?
Yeah, that was my first
one.
All right, let's see, what do I got here? Selling bathwater.
Ooh, all right. That's been a hot topic at my house lately.
That's some Tokyo shit, man.
That's some OnlyFans shit.
Yeah, OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Selling bathwater. I've never thought, like, I mean, you hear of like the vending machine with underwear and like people with like wanting feet pics and stuff with OnlyFans, but I've never thought about selling bathwater.
People do it. People sell it. I mean, if you have a large OnlyFans following, especially the people that are into more stuff like feet and because people sell their socks, they sell their underwear and shit like that. But no, people will buy your bathwater, and you basically just take a bath. You probably have a video out there of you taking the bath or whatever, and then I don't know, you just take a mason jar, you scoop it up, and sell it for $100 or something like that.
That could be very lucrative. That's a lot of.
That would be very lucrative. I've tried to talk my wife into it. She's not interested.
That's interesting. That's a very specific.
It is very specific because she said, "What are they doing with it?" And I said, I'll give you a couple of different things. They're using it for lube, they're drinking it, or they're bathing with it as well.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Who cares?
Yeah. I don't care what you do with the bathwater once I'm done with it.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not weirded out, but I've just never thought about that. I mean,
it happens.
I mean, if something exists, there's a fetish for it.
Absolutely.
But I've never even considered like people buying dirty bathwater.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. I don't understand buying used underwear, but whatever. Yeah, but
I feel
that makes more sense.
If you're honest, you're only selling one pair of underwear a day, probably, whereas bathwater, you're selling a lot of it.
Yeah. I mean, what a tub is, let's just say, conservatively 45 gallons.
There's got to be people that are very specific with it. Like, you have to take 2 baths in this water, or I want this type of soap, or I want this.
Well, I'm sure some of them, and the more specific you are, the higher the cost of the water.
Well, it's the same thing with like foot soap. Like, okay, I want you with these types of socks, a picture in the grass or just squishing in the mud or whatever the case may
or
be.
work out in them and then wear them all day and then sell them to whatever. Yeah.
So crazy.
Are these ordinary people or are these like celebrities who are asked?
Oh no, there's nothing ordinary about those people. No,
no, most of the OnlyFans are not celebrities.
No,
I mean, they become their own weird type of, but yeah, they're just normal people. I say normal, like relatively speaking, but it's very interesting to me.
It's mostly guys, I imagine, so it's not like women want to buy my bathwater.
No.
I would like to talk to the woman that wants to buy a guy's bathwater because that goes against everything I know about women. Do what?
A man might want to buy my bathwater.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if you're a man, woman, him, her.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a butter. We have a guy that we know named Hunter, and he came on. He's an amateur stand-up comedian in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we give him shit all the time for coming on here. But I stumbled across, he had an OnlyFans page. No, because the douchebag put his own email, his personal email address on his Twitter account, and I stumbled across his giant penis accidentally. But yeah, but he's also a terrible comedian, but he has a giant dick. So life finds a way.
All right, Goldblum.
In the words of Jeff Goldblum.
Oh God! Did you see Hunter's most recent stand-up set?
Oh, it's so bad.
I think it was better. Some of it was better than the previous. The newest one he put out like a week or so ago. He put the video out. Like some of it was okay.
All right, your turn.
All right, here we go.
If that says snake, I'm going to be shocked.
Yeah, if it's a snake, I'm going to be shocked. All right, here we go.
I'm going to start writing snake every week.
This has got to be yours because it's a huge piece of paper. Pedal error?
What?
That's got to be Mike. I don't even know what pedal error is.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's got to be a guitar thing.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, P-E-T or P-E-T. Pedal like
P-E-D. Like P-E-D-A-L, yeah. Pedal error. It's got to be a guitar pedal. It's got to be.
I don't know. I regret ever having him on this podcast.
Do you?
No.
Jesus Christ. Pedal error.
Yeah. So I do have a question with as far as comedy goes, now that we've just derailed everything.
Snakes and penises enough.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a Saturday night for us.
This is true. But so you went, because you said you've been doing it for about 18 years now, but you were still like, you weren't just fresh out of high school, college, going straight into comedy, right?
No, I started at 40.
Right. So how do you feel that differs, like from like young and upcoming? I mean, I'm sure getting started is the same, but I feel like going into it older, you have a little more like world sense about you, how things actually work.
There's positives and negatives. The negatives we talked about, it's like really impossible to get on TV if you're old. And if I'd started at 22, I might have. On the other hand, I might have started at 22, bombed 3 times in a row and said, okay, I gave it my best shot, never doing it again. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But there's a couple of things. There's experience that you have to talk about. Like I have a life to talk about. A lot of times you go to an open mic and half the comedians are 22 years old and their whole life is like smoking pot and living in mom and dad's basement and masturbating.
Yeah.
And that's all they talk about because that's the only thing they have. Whereas if you're 40, you've had legal troubles, you've had jobs, you've had girlfriends, whatever. So there's stuff to talk about. But also there's wisdom that comes with age, because I notice if you're 22 and you have a shitty set, you're miserable for a week. And if you're 40 and you have a shitty set, you're like, okay, everybody's got a bad day at work once in a while. Let me see if I can figure out what went wrong. And it's like one more thing for me not to do wrong the next time. But also you lose some of the camaraderie, because a lot of my peers when I started were, 20 years younger than I was.
Right.
So they didn't want to hang out with dad.
Right. Yeah. I guess too, though, I feel like one of the advantages would have to be like, if you're like at 40, like the age we're at now, like going into something, I understand people a lot better and how people operate and motivations and things like that much, much more as a naive 20-year-old. So I feel like that would be an advantage to a certain point as far as navigating an audience or what was going to work and what wasn't, depending on their age group.
It really is an advantage in the way that you are more trusting of taking advice. Because when you're 20, you think you know everything. And when you're
Yeah.
40, you're like, if somebody tells me this, I'll listen to them. So a good piece of advice comedians get, and stupid as it sounds, don't be an asshole. Because most of your breaks when you start out in comedy don't come from comedy club bookers or any of that. It comes from other comedians. They'll be like, hey, come on the road with me, or I'm doing this gig at a bar and I'll give you 5 minutes. And if people think you're a jackass, you don't get that.
Yeah. I've wondered that if it's possible to have a successful career in comedy starting at 40, because like that's like used to be, it was music, but like to me is like, God, if I could go back, I would have liked to have known that comedian was a job when I was 16 or 17 years old. Like where we grew up, you didn't know, like the comedians I knew were Bill Cosby, Howie Mandel, a couple of other people, but I knew them from TV and then found out that they did comedy. And I just thought if you were a popular enough person on TV, you could then go on stage and make people laugh.
Yeah, which is obviously the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you didn't like, I mean, growing up in a small town anyway, it's like go to college maybe, or get a job at the local factory. And then you got a career, for lack of a better word, for life in the small town or whatever. And like, but if you weren't great at sports anyway, if you were great at sports, then fine, you can go to college. Maybe you can make it to the pros, maybe. But it would have been great to have known that some of that stuff, because I think that I would have enjoyed at least doing it for a few years and having that experience. But again, it's hard to.
Well, that you can do. You may not make it to where you're making a living or getting famous. I mean, when I started at 40, I'm like, this is going to be an impossibility. People are like, well, Rodney Dangerfield started at 40. And like, first of all, he didn't. He started much younger and quit for a while. But also,
but the Rodney Dangerfield we know was later in his life. Yeah,
right. But also, you have to realize 2 things. One is he was a genius, and 2, times were different then. You could be 40 and people would, put you on TV, or 50 or whatever.
Right.
So it's a lot more difficult. Now, listen, it could happen. It's entirely possible that somebody who started when I started at 40 will break through, but it's a lot less likely.
Yeah,
gotcha.
That's a very interesting thing. Like what you guys were talking about with like Rodney Dangerfield is, again, me not knowing much, like with comedians, the ones that they break out like, oh, there's this new comedian on the scene. They've probably been doing that shit for sure. 10, 15 years before they get that break. And it's never like advertised that.
But yeah. Well, like I started about a year after Amy Schumer, and she just broke through, and it was pretty amazing to watch, because very few people from that cohort just got big that quick.
Yeah.
So over the last 18 years, so like, and that's what interests me, I guess, about being a clean comedian, because culturally and socially, like I don't know how the scene is in New York, but I know it's probably changed a lot in the last 18 years as far as things that are taboo to joke about or not. And I know some comedians are always pushing those boundaries, but at a certain level, you have to kind of watch what you say, because you don't want to get just completely like Chappelle at this point can say whatever the hell he wants. Doesn't matter. But that doesn't apply to everyone at every level, obviously. Has that affected you as much as somebody that usually keeps a clean set?
It's funny. It hasn't affected me so much yet. Sometimes I'm the one they complain about. I don't like, really? I got a complaint. So I did a show. I used to do a monthly show at a jazz club in the great state of New Jersey. And the owner, and there was nothing about the show that we advertised as clean. But the owner came to me and he said, well, we got a complaint. And I'm like, what was it? He said, it was about you. And I'm like, well, what did I say? And I wouldn't call it a rape joke, but it was on the subject of date rape. And it was a stupid. Most of the time, I think when people are pissed off about a joke, it's either the subject alone makes them uncomfortable, or they think you're making fun of something, but you're really not making fun of that. So the joke was something like, I've had a rough week. Last night, I wasted a $20 roofie on a woman in a bar who turned out to be a $12 whore.
That's a great joke. That really is a great joke.
It cost me $32. I mean, I think to me, that's a math joke.
Yeah.
That's like, I could have had, now obviously rape is a crime of violence, not a crime of sex.
Sure.
But the idea that somebody would rape a prostitute when it would be cheaper to just pay her, to me is a concept. But to somebody in the audience, it made her uncomfortable, or him uncomfortable. And they
And
complain.
the delivery,
I don't go through the kind of shit that other people do.
yeah. But even that delivery was not rapey at all in my brain.
No.
Like I never once thought of that as like, oh,
right.
But that's
yeah. But you're also a guy who's probably not living his life in fear of being raped because it's
no, absolutely.
Well, how do you know?
No, Mike. See, my wife. We talked about
break.
Do what?
That's why we took the 10-minute break.
Yes.
That's why I'm so tired now. So I'm fighting him off out there.
No, but you said, and I get that I'm a guy and I didn't hear that, but like my wife's, Amanda, she's really sensitive to a lot of that stuff. And I don't mean sensitive as like offended easily, but sensitive to context and things of that nature. And I know her really well. And I don't think she would have taken offense to that joke.
But obviously, I mean, sometimes
some people do.
The hard part is they think you're like, if you have a joke about racism and you're not being a racist, you're making fun of racism. People still, if they misinterpret your joke, think you're being a racist and they get very upset.
Right.
Well, so we have a game. We have a game that we play on the show every now and then. And we call it Who's That Racist? And what it is we take a racist quote from famous people like presidents, like senators, celebrities, whatever. And I mean, we obviously don't read it verbatim, like there's, whatever. And then we have a multiple choice to see if you can guess who says it. And it's always super surprising. And we have more.
We've had a lot of people say that call us racist for it. And it's like, you do realize the point of that is to point out like how many idiot asshole racist.
Well, we have a couple, like I call them like brother podcast or sister podcast or whatever, but like Trevor Jackson. And then the Two Brothers podcast. And they call all the time. Troy from him.
Every time he calls, he wants to play the game.
Yeah.
Every time.
And I mean, and they're great dudes, but yeah, that's their favorite game in the world. I was like, do you really think that we'd have two black dudes to call and play this game if they really thought that we were being racist? Like you guys, and it's always white people that are offended by it, which is amazing to me.
But that's something comedians run through is if we tell a joke that's based on race and there's black people in the audience, the white people are, and we see this all the time. It's the funniest thing to us. The white people are just too uncomfortable to laugh, and they'll look at the black people. If the black people are laughing, then the white people are laughing. But you can watch them turn their heads like, I know there's black people sitting over there. Let me see how they're reacting.
Yeah. To me, that's way more racist than any joke you could tell. I mean, honestly, it is. It's way that's
not necessarily conscious, but
whatever.
But you run out of quotes because it's really funny though. Like we always joked that like if somebody could see our search history,
oh my god,
like why are these guys just looking up like racist quotes on the internet all the time? It's ridiculous.
You got to turn your safe search off.
You've got to switch to a non-cookie search engine.
Yeah, you got to turn your safe search off. You can't use Google because Google filters that shit out. Bing, you can be pretty successful with.
We need to go Tor. We need to go Tor browsers.
All right, that's fine.
Or just DuckDuckGo at least doesn't keep track of what you search.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just going to start asking Jeeves. So.
I did a search a couple of months, actually more than a couple of months ago. It was before the pandemic. I put in because it was for a joke I was working on, and I incorporated this into the joke. I typed into to Google, "Am I a?" and it auto-filled sociopath, and that was actually what I was Googling.
That's hilarious.
That is pretty good.
Apparently, that's something that people Google.
Yeah.
See, I feel like if I would have typed in "Am I a sociopath?" the drop down would have just said yes.
Yeah.
There would have been no other options.
Oh God.
Oh.
Well,
so diagnosed, confirmed.
About is Dave Chappelle so famous he doesn't have to worry about what he says? Kevin Hart got kicked off the Academy Awards for something he said 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the difference is I don't know. What do you think the difference is between that? I think it's Dave Chappelle legitimately doesn't give a shit.
I think that's part of it.
At the stage he's at now.
Yeah, he's not trying to make the big movies with The Rock like Kevin Hart is and things, and he's not trying to host award shows.
All of it.
You don't buy all of what?
All of the bravado or his not giving a shit.
You don't think so?
I don't buy all of it. I think he's adopted that role well.
I don't know. I think he realized that that there's a purpose he's serving for this. I think he's joining two sides I think the people that can be joined to the other side, he's joining two sides of our country when it comes to some of that stuff.
But everybody wants to be liked.
Yeah. Everybody does want to be liked. Absolutely. I agree with that. But it's I think for some people, and I think he is one of them, that being liked is not the most important to him anymore. Okay. I think he's reached a point over the last, let's say, 5 years where what he thinks to him is more important than being liked. I think.
Or he knows that his 80% of his fans will like him no matter what he does, and fuck the other.
That's true as well. I think that's true as well. I have nothing to base this on my personal opinion.
But here's the thing: like, I was 100% Camp Chappelle until the fucking Netflix Chappelle Show thing. Then fuck him. That was a dick power move.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that all of the rest of his stuff isn't any good.
What's that?
You mean when he quit like 20 years ago?
No. So when they recently, because they own contracts and all that stuff.
To
get
it taken off of Netflix because he didn't get paid for it. Yeah, it's not like he needs to.
Well, it's not even just that. Like he's big thing with him is integrity and standing up for things, and he signed that contract. Like we've had this conversation, and like to me, like that's just part of like living with it, as opposed to like using his influence and his power to force them to take it down. Like that's just, to me, is just
he didn't use influence and power to force Netflix to take it down,
or not. Whatever it was,
Netflix is the one that took it down. Comedy Central is one that sold it to Netflix. Yeah. Netflix is doing what was best for them. But I'm saying,
right. But I'm saying he called all of his fans to boycott it and not watch it until whatever. And like, to me, that's petty. It's petty, is what that was.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
But that took the wind out of
Netflix isn't the one with, even if you say he's exploited, Netflix isn't the party that did it to him. They didn't exist.
Right. Sure. And that's why I say I think Netflix did what was, from a business perspective, what was right for them to do was to support their big
and
name.
I don't care what they did. I'm talking about, I have an issue with how Chappelle handled it.
I agree. He signed a contract. That's the thing. I completely agree with what
he should have pulled a Taylor Swift and just re-recorded all the old episodes himself.
Well, wait a minute. He signed. Let's step back a second. He signed a $40 million contract.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And then he's crying about the royalties.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that he did right.
He's not a black Motown artist in the 50s who sold his entire collection for $1.
Yep. I don't disagree with anything that you guys are saying. Well, then what the
fuck are we arguing about? We should be arguing.
That's the thing. I ask him this all the time.
Argument.
I'm not trying to argue that what he did was right or wrong or anything. I think that he signed a contract. He signed a big contract. And I agree with what you guys are saying about it. What I'm saying is I think that he has his own set of morals that he lives by, and that falls under that. Yep. Right or wrong.
Right. But that's what I'm calling is bullshit and hypocritical, and completely takes some of that his clout away.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
And I'm trying to start an argument and it's not working.
Yeah. Do what?
I'm trying to start an argument and it's not working.
No, because I agree with what you guys are saying. I'm saying from his side of it, I think that it still falls under what his set of morals are.
Yeah, I don't care.
I understand that. I don't care whether he does it or doesn't do it.
So I brought this up because Joey is always very opinionated on the subject. We even had his sister's a lawyer called him. No, that was a big argument.
It was an argument, but it's because I had to take his side. I said it from the beginning. This is fine. I agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to argue on his side.
Okay.
You can be that way all you want. You absolutely know that's the way it was.
And you're not invited to Thanksgiving this year.
No.
I've known him for 20 years, and I still have to call him before I can come in the house.
You text me.
I text you.
Hey, I'm here, and I come unlocked. What am I supposed to just leave the door unlocked?
You give me a goddamn key.
No.
Don't you just ring the doorbell when you go visit a friend?
What was that?
Don't you just ring the doorbell?
No, he comes in the side door.
Yeah. Well, because he has dogs that go crazy, and sometimes your wife's sleeping and stuff. So
yeah.
No, I would never just walk into somebody's house. Except my parents' house, but I would just never walk into a friend's house without some advantage.
I hate when someone shows up at my house unannounced, and so I would never do that to someone unless I had to. Yeah.
Well,
I'm always restricted to the basement anyway. You never let me go upstairs.
I've never told you can't. You came upstairs when you're drunk and had to bring you back in the house so you could sleep on the couch.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, nobody but me has been in my house for the past year, but at some point I want people to come over.
Right. Yeah.
I don't care. People, doesn't matter. Please. I need some company.
I'm so lonely.
I'll come to New York sometime. Let me get my other vaccine first.
Well, I had my second shot almost 2 weeks ago, so Tuesday is 2 weeks. So I'm
nice.
Licking strangers and whatever you got to do.
So I heard, are they starting to lift? Are they lifting the quarantine ban there in New York yet? I know they were talking about it.
They opened entertainment venues at, like, in New York City. I think it's a third of capacity or something. Restaurants, I think, are a third of capacity, but you can't sit at the bar, and if you sit at the table, you have to order food in New York City.
Okay.
Connecticut is more open. I just booked 2 shows at a theater in Fairfield County, Connecticut, where it's the room I'm in is, I think, 220 or so seats, and they're selling 70 tickets. So it's one.
Oh, wow.
But I'm hoping that by the time June comes around, it will be at least half.
Yeah.
They're not making any money at 70 seats. I'm not making any money at 70 seats, but
right.
bigger, then we'll all be happy.
Okay.
So as we kind of start to wind down, like what's a big name person that or most memorable, or however you want to go about it, that you've shared the stage with, like in one night, like you went on, they went on, or whatever?
I was hosting a show at Gotham Comedy Club a bunch of years ago, and it was a show I was running, and I got a call mid-afternoon from the club, and they said Jerry Seinfeld would like 20 minutes in the show. I'm like, yeah, I think I can accommodate that. So they're like, around, they said that, like, he'll be there around 8:30. So I arranged a schedule, but famous comics do this all the time, and then sometimes don't show up. So I had to prepare to have him not there. But so somebody's on stage at like 8:25, and Seinfeld walks in, and there's a light in the back of the room, a red light that you turn on to let people know, your time is up, or you have 2 minutes left, or whatever. And I told the comic who was going on, hey, you may get lit early because Jerry Seinfeld's coming. He's like, whatever, fine. Nobody says, nobody complains about that. So then what happens is I flick the light, and he says, thank you. And I walk on, and I see the way the club is arranged. I can see that Jerry Seinfeld is backstage, like around the corner, but the audience can't. And I go on stage and I say, one of the great things about hosting a show here is I get to say things like, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Seinfeld. And the place just goes nuts. And then, they're cheering, and then the cheering dies down, and the applause dies down, and there's no Jerry Seinfeld. And I could feel the energy, and I knew he was there because I'd seen it. And I could feel the energy of the crowd turn against me, and they're like, you're fucking with us. How dare you lead us on like that? And the crowd's angry. And then Jerry Seinfeld walks out on stage, and they go nuts again because he did it on purpose.
Yeah, of course.
To milk that. Yeah. Then he comes on stage, takes my hand, he whispers in my ear, they didn't believe you. And I'm like, keep whispering. It looks like we know each other.
Oh, that's great. That is great. That's a good story. That's a good one to go out on. Actually, we've come back up now.
Okay, actually, after I drug us down.
After you really drug us down.
I blame this thing.
So do you have anything you want to plug? I know your website is brainchampagne.com. You got some videos there.
I have videos. I also have, I think it's 50,000 words worth of jokes, which is a lot of comedy material. That's about half a novel's worth of jokes. So there's a lot to do. And you can sign up for my email list, and you get original comedy every month. And that's it. No spam or anything. Other than that, I've got 2 shows on my calendar in June.
You got any socials you want to plug?
You can friend me, Shaun Bright. Eli's my middle name. My last name is Breitbart. But I'm sure if you put Shaun Eli on Facebook, you'll find me. It's at Shaun Eli Comedy on Twitter.
Okay.
Or just, ring my doorbell and ask me to tell you a joke. Just be wearing a mask.
Right. Okay. So that's Shaun Eli.
Oh. For anyone listening who doesn't know, right before we went on, he clarified with us how to pronounce his last name because we weren't sure. So.
Well, also because as a kid, people would pronounce it Ellie, and I'm like, that's a girl's name. Don't call me Ellie.
Right. Sure.
Eli.
Oh God.
Now my oldest is named Eli, so
yeah.
It was I didn't misread it.
Yeah. My oldest is named Gabe. So
yeah. Good job.
Yeah. It's not Gabe or
Gabe.
My brother spells it G-A-B every time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
G-A-B?
G-A-B. And every time we're like, you mean Gabe? And he's like, the fucking E is silent. Leave me alone.
Going down your Arrested Development references tonight.
Wait,
No, that's actually how Will does it every time.
That's funny.
His name is Will?
My brother's name is Will, and he spells yes with 2 L's.
Pointless.
Yeah, Will.
No, I get it. Will Willis does it correctly. Yes, but yes, he spells it every time G-A-B, and every time me, my sister, whoever says, "Do you mean G-A-B-E?" And he's like, "The fucking E is silent every time." He says it every time.
Will.
Yeah. Well. Oh well.
All right.
Shaun, this was fun. Honestly, I enjoyed talking comedy with you. Would have been nice if Steven hadn't been here, but still.
I can concur. But if you don't mind hanging out for just a second after we end the broadcast, we'll chat with you just for a minute, and then yeah. But we appreciate you being on. All right, everybody.
Again, Anders Ericsson next week. At Nightmare Gloves on Instagram. Go check out some of his stuff. If you watched last week's video with Jay Nielsen, you saw Jay Nielsen's glove that Anders had made for him, the Freddy Krueger glove. So be an interesting conversation. So
and we're drinking Bullet Bourbon.
We are drinking Bullet Bourbon. Yes.
All right.
Till next time. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook at B3F Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at B3F Podcast and on Instagram at B3F_podcast. Send us your questions or comments to bfff.podcast@gmail.com. Rate us and review us wherever you listen to the show. And as always, thanks for listening.